In this series of videos, we're going to take a look at creating HTML tables. Now, HTML tables should never be used for layout of your site. You should only use these tables when you have some sort of tabular data, like a calendar or a schedule of some sort, something like that that should be laid out in a table. That makes perfect sense. Do not use these for laying out your entire web page. That's not done anymore because of all of the options that we have in CSS. So here, just to get started, we are going to create this table. And when I highlight this, we can see all of this data that we're going to put in there. I'm going to take a look at how we're creating that in HTML. This doesn't look real pretty, but we will look at styling these things in another video. But in this video, I just want to concentrate on the HTML part of those tables. So the first thing that you're going to want to do to create the table is use the table tag. That tells the browser that what you're putting in there is going to be a table. It has some specific properties that it's going to display a certain way. And the table tag, everything inside of here is going to be a part of your table. Now there are a few requirements for putting some of the data in there. In the end, your data needs to be inside of a TD tag. But to set up your different rows, you need to use the TR tag, and the TR stands for table row. And then inside of that table row, the way that the browser knows how many columns need to be there is based on the number of TD tags. And if you use different number of TD tags in different rows, it's going to use whatever the longest row is to decide the width of that table by default. So here, like I said, we're going to build out this table. So this work schedule here, that's one of the only things that's not going to be inside of one of those table rows and inside of a TD or table data tag. And that's because it goes inside of the caption tag. So here, work schedule. When I save this, refresh this page, here I have work schedule. It's pretty narrow because I don't have any data in the table, but it's going to go at the top of the table regardless of where I put this, at least by default. And we'll take a look at moving that around later on in this video. So here inside of the TR tag, we can add some TD tags. So TD being table data. And you can also use and should use these TH tags. Those are table header tags or table heading tags. And that is to put this header field. And that can be helpful for screen readers and other devices looking at the web page that want to be able to tell you, this is the Monday column, this is the Tuesday column, the Wednesday column, and so on. You can also use those on rows. So this cell here would be at, Monday, Jeff, and this one at, Sally, or Tuesday, Sally, and so on. So it helps define some of that in the browser using some of those semantics. So here, to rebuild the table that we currently have, I have actually 6 columns, one of them being blank in this row. So here I'm going to put in Monday, Tuesday, and the rest of the days of the week. Alright, so now I have the rest of the days of the week in here, and you can see I dropped these down to indent them. You don't have to for these because it's very small headers, and that could be helpful if you didn't, but that's up to you. This first one, we can see I left it empty, and we'll take a look at why I did that. So here, when I save this, refresh my page, we can see over here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we can't really tell that there's an empty column there. So in my next column, or my next row, I'm going to add some TD tags. So TD for the table data, because these aren't headers, or not all of these are headers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go ahead and put in, or copy this so that I can put in a few more rows here. And then because those are empty, when I refresh my page, we still don't see any change here. But then I know I wanted this row to be Jeff. This row was Sally. And this row was Fred. And we have Robert. So now that we have some content in there, we save our page, refresh this, we can see this column has no heading above it, where these next ones are going to. And that's so that we can use these as headings, but they're not headings at the moment. So what we would need to do is change these to TH tags. So here, going in, changing these to those table header tags. And we have one more. Save this, refresh. And now they're bold and they're getting some of those default styles because they are those TH tags. We can restyle those later if we want to, just like we can style these captions, but we'll look at that in a later video. So now we need some times in here. So I'm going to get these times. So like Jeff's was 6 to 3, and Sally was 7 to 4. So we'll come down here, add some of that. Whoops. And Fred 1 to 10. And Robert 4 to 10. So now we still have some empty table data tags, but that's just for the sake of time. So now when I save that, refresh it, I can see we have this 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. under Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. These pieces of data that are inside of here. So when we have that filled out, it's going to look like this, where I'm going to pause this so that you don't have to sit through that, and I will add the rest of that data. All right, so now I have the rest of the data added in here. Just copying those hours. It's saved, we refresh it, and we can see we do have data for all of these columns. And we can see the table expanded much wider than it was, and this caption is taking up that, or it's staying all on one line because it doesn't need to drop down to another line. Now looking at this caption here, if I cut that from the top of the table and put it down here at the bottom of the table below this last row, you might think that it's going to go here below this row with Robert in it. But when I refresh my page, I can see it's still getting put in the top of the table. So if I right click, inspect that element, and I come in here and I look at this, I can see we have these TR tags And then at the end of the table, I have this caption. So even though it's at the very end, it's still by default showing at the top of that table. So that's something to keep in mind. If you, for some reason, need that caption to show up elsewhere, you'll have to style that so that it does move that caption. In the next video, we're going to take a look at some CSS so that we can add some borders and do some different things with these tables.